Summer is dead. Long live autumn. Mayhaps a little melodramatic, but you know what? So has the heat this year. So has been the heat this year. But we're off to a great start already. Greetings and felicitations, assorted children of the internet. I am the Logician, and autumn is finally here. Maybe not officially, but you know what? It's cooling down. The leaves are turning. I'm gonna say it counts. I am sick and fucking tired of dealing with the heat, as I'm sure many of you fellow introverts are as well. We can actually finally open our fucking windows, take in the fresh fucking air, and relax in knowing that we won't have to spend nearly as much as we have been on air conditioning. So, to ring in the new season, I figured for this week's Sim Saturday, I would dip a toe into a genre of simulator game I'm generally not used to, which is the first-person cleanup simulator game genre. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the likes of Power Wash Simulator and House Flip Simulator or whatever the fuck. So I figured I'd try something similar with a game I found from the collection assembled by one of my mods. This one is called Autumn Cleanup. And to my understanding, it is basically just a simulator where you clean up the turned leaves that have fallen in the streets of whatever residential neighborhood this game is taking place in. Outside of that, I know absolutely nothing about this game, other than the fact that is, well, not even the fact, the implication that it's supposed to be a simulator of cleaning up leaves. I suppose there is only one way to find out, and that is by actually playing the video's game. So, with all that being said, here we fucking are. And right out the gate, it looks far more similar to a visual novel than a simulator game. Who knows? Maybe it's a combination of both. I know literally nothing outside of a few brief screenshots of this, so I suppose we will in fact find out together. As always, please let me know how the audio is sounding for this game so I can adjust accordingly. And in the immortal words of one famous Italian plumber, let's a fucking go. A peaceful alcove in the garden, tucked behind the trees, embraced by the soothing song of the wind. High score. Ooh. That was a rather menacing end to the fucking music. Welcome to Autumn Cleanup, your cozy cleaning simulator. Your goal is to sweep all of the fallen leaves on the level. Use the joystick to move, and this one to look around. Use RT to sweep. You receive money for sweeping, which you can later use to buy more powerful brooms. And okay, yeah, no, this is in fact Power Wash Simulator, but with sweeping leaves. That's what I'm getting. And you know, honestly, not a bad place to start. Oh, my computer didn't like that. Okay, so tapping the button does it indefinitely. So at least I don't have to hold anything down, which is somewhat of a relief. Jump and run. Oh, Jesus. Okay, no, but the funny thing is, I recognize that very specific anime speedline graphic for the running animation, because I have the default file for that in my editing software. Well, not my editing software, but like my collection of effects for video editing. Again, normally this is generally not my type of game. How many times can I say generally in the same sentence? Press Y to highlight leaves. Oh, Jesus. Flashbanged by the seasons. Which sounds like an interesting porno name, now that I think about it. Honestly, this is not the music I expected with this game. In fact, part of me expected there to be no music, but you know what? I don't hate it. I was honestly further surprised by the fact that this game had controller compatibility. There are other ways to clean leaves other than using your brooms, just jumping. This is chill. Hello, Boomba! Thank you for dropping by. Yes, this was sort of the plan for tonight in terms of stream vibes. Just something cozy, something chill to help celebrate the passing of summer into autumn. Also, do let me know if the music is too loud or too quiet. I am trying to find that happy balance with each and every game. But yes, I am glad that you are appreciating the immaculate vibes this game provides. Once again, not the music I expected from a game like this, but I am not complaining. Favorite season? Audio is good. Yeah, no, I mean, I might be somewhat biased in that I am an October baby, but I too am just generally a fan of autumn more than any other season. It's just the right temperature for me, not too cold. Gorgeous fucking coloration on every fucking tree. And even among, like, the evergreens, which, where I grew up, there were a lot of fucking evergreen trees. Just the culmination of those dried pine needles on the forest floor. Another immaculate aesthetic. On extra cash, you can throw away the garbage bags littered throughout the area. You know what? I might, in fact, just do that. And this, friends, is why you always need to support indie game devs. Let's see here, just inspecting along this way. I am relatively certain for as long as I can remember being an adult, I have always favored autumn among the seasons. Yes, I am sweeping the grass. Why do you ask? I'm strange around here. I think it's also in part because Halloween was always my favorite holiday. I mean, I too enjoyed Christmas, like a lot of other kids who celebrated Christmas growing up. But there is something just special about Halloween. New upgrade unlocked. Access shop. That is another interesting effect there. Oh, yes. So, I favored Halloween for many reasons. One, I was a kid who liked just being creative and dressing up and drawing and decorating, and the idea of a holiday where you just dress the fuck up as whatever you want within reason and go out late at night, look at a bunch of interesting decorations, and get free candy. I mean, what's not to like? And plus, I lived in like a twisty rural mountain cul-de-sac neighborhood. So there are lots of twists and turns to go about when I was trick-or-treating. So it always felt like an adventure. And I feel like that's one of those elements of Halloween that doesn't get highlighted enough. That sense of adventure inherent of, like, especially when you are younger trick-or-treating. That sounds good. Oh yeah, no, it's like, it was a great place to, live. The unfortunate part was that it was a part of California where a lot of the times it was very dry because it was in the middle of wine country, so most of the water went directly to the grapes and the vineyards and all that. So summers, rather, there probably were more Hummers around the older I got, but summers were not my favorite. But once the leaves started turning and things started cooling down, oh Nelly, that was when I was really in my element, especially when it rained. I've always also just really appreciated the aesthetic of rainy days, hearing the rain pelting against the glass windows and the distant rumble of thunder. Like, my favorite scents in general, as far as I can remember, my favorite smells have been petrichor, which is the smell of, like, essentially the environment after it's been raining for a while, and campfire smoke, or chimney smoke. And you would get a lot of that in autumn. Because you have a lot of people in their various houses, stoking fires because it's starting to get cold. And you get that smell of rain when it's either actively raining or just after the fact. And you also just get that chimney smoke smell coming from various places in the distance. I really wish they made like a petrichor or campfire candle. There's no doubt in my mind that there probably is some sort of Yankee candle akin to that. Have I mentioned that I'm partial to autumn? As if it weren't fucking obvious already. I can also appreciate that there is an ongoing playlist of music, even with this introductory level here. Like, this is the tutorial level, I'm pretty certain. Oh. Well, look at that number. Ah, too late. Well, we missed the spooky number, but you know what? We're getting closer to spooky month anyway. Speaking of spooky month, so for those of you who are familiar with the works of my friend Gail Rice, aka Hunshwan Bats, you might be interested to know that there may or may not be something coming up, somewhat of a special announcement this Monday. I won't elaborate past that, but it's worth keeping an eye out for, and I will very much leave it at that. But it is something I am very excited for, and I hope you all are excited for it once you actually learn more. But in the interim, it is still very hush hush, hint hint, nudge nudge, all that good stuff. You know, even like the slight red camera glint, the gleam. It's one of those distinct elements of this type of environment and this type of weather. Like that sunset lens flare effect. I do appreciate when a game or an animated series goes the extra mile with the aesthetics of, like, adding artificial camera effects. Like, I was rewatching earlier today an older YouTube series taking place in a dystopian setting known as Autodale. And there were parts where they would add that sort of effect of when a camera is focused up on something that's relevant to the scene, but it also happens to be raining or there's a splash of water, and you get that sort of fractal effect of when a droplet of water gets on the lens, but the lens is focused on what's behind the water. They were adding that to this animation, which wasn't necessary, but it helped me feel a lot more immersed in the story because of that little effect, that little attention to detail. That was not necessarily relevant to the plot, but just made me feel more like what was actually happening was happening, despite the fantastical nature of the story. Which, if you have not checked out Autodale, I highly, highly recommend it. It is one of my favorite dystopian horror series on YouTube. I will warn you that there is a fair bit of body horror and implications of fascism and prejudice in general, but it is a very, very, very well told story. So... yeah, man. How do I... oh, do I need to put this into a specific... is that how it works? Oh, okay. There we are. Slowly but surely, I am in fact learning. I do love me a good gazebo as well. Like, this honestly reminds me of when I first went to the Exploratorium in San Francisco. Well, back when it was in San Francisco. I believe they have since located elsewhere? Question mark? Don't quote me on that. It was when I was a child still, so it was some time ago. But there is that specific gazebo in San Francisco that I'm sure those of you who have been to the city will recognize simply by my mentioning it. It has honestly been a decent enough amount of time since I've been to San Francisco where I would not be surprised if I was simply misremembering that gazebo ever having existed. It's been a fairly decent amount of time since I have gone traveling in general. And I might want to change that at some point once I have the means of doing so. As the kids say, life comes at you fast, and you simply have to roll with the punches when they come about, I suppose. I would indeed like to do more traveling again. Because there is definitely something to be said about staying in one place and feeling safe and secure. And I do enjoy doing that. I am very much a homebody most of the time. Very much my mother's son. Though in her case, it was because she was constantly having to move from city to city because of her father's job demanding it. Whereas because I was sort of forced to stay in one place for a long, long time because of my mother wanting to grip onto those new roots for dear fucking life, I've always liked the idea of traveling to different places. Within reason. Of course, within reason means something a little bit different for everyone, but I remember my first real vacation that I got to go on that wasn't involved with family or any other prior connections. Well, I guess connections I made online and related to interests, but it wasn't related to something someone else instigated. Was when I went to Montreal, Quebec, in 2016, to meet up with some relatively new friends. And this was an interesting time, because unbeknownst to me, this was when Montreal was facing a record heat wave. And so I had the joy of having to deal with that during my visit, but it was still an absolutely wonderful, wonderful visit. Not only, meeting up with friends, but also seeing all these different places, trying new foods, and just getting to soak in the culture of that city. Both Montreal and then Ottawa for about a week after that. I will have to find an excuse as well as the means of getting back up there again someday, because it has been nearly 10 years since then. Plus, not gonna lie, the United States is looking less and less like a viable option for long-term living in general. As I'm sure many of you can understand. The funny thing is, I mentioned earlier that I grew up in a part of California where there were a lot of evergreen trees. They were redwoods, specifically. And I love the aesthetic of redwoods. I probably always will, because it reminds me a lot of home and comfort. But the thing about evergreens is that, as the name implies, they are forever green. So when you live in an area where most of the trees never change color with the seasons, it gets a bit more difficult to get a firm grasp of the passage of time. It just feels like you're sort of trapped in the sort of timeless limbo, which can be a bit of a double-edged sword. For example, during my graduate studies, after I'd completed my undergraduate degree, I lived in a cabin in the middle of the woods in much northern California than from where I grew up. And I loved it. It was nice to have this little cabin to myself, to not have to worry about noisy neighbors or annoying other neighbors with my own noise, and just staying up as long as I wanted, all that good stuff. But after a point, I started to go a little fucking crazy because it felt like nothing was happening. Mainly in that, after I completed my master's studies, I felt sort of trapped. I was constantly applying for work. I was not getting any bites. It felt like nothing was progressing, nothing was changing. And as much as I loved that cabin, and as much as I miss that cabin even now, I felt like I just had to get out of there one way or another. Because I felt as long as I was stuck in this sort of seasonal limbo, nothing in my life would truly progress. And eventually, after a year, I secured work in another city. I moved out of state, and voila. My life, despite the difficulties, has in fact progressed to a point where I never could have expected. Alright, what have you done, Koshe? Let me take a look. What have you sent me? Let's see here. Un momento. Again, this is not music I expected from this game. Huh. So I have just now been informed that Twitch has DMs, which I was not aware of. I feel older every fucking second. I suppose that is also how the passage of time works. Let me see. Where would I even go for Twitch DMs? Ah, there it is. All right. And so it looks like there was in fact a technical issue that needed to be resolved, and I believe it has since been resolved. So, back, in fact, to this. That was really good timing with the music, holy shit. My word. I suppose this is another testament to my lack of general base knowledge when it comes to most modern websites. Because I grew up with the message, first of all, I grew up with the definition PM for personal message. That's how it was from everything from like Gaia Online to most other forum sites to just in general, it was PMs. And then I discovered, oh hey, Discord is a thing. Oh, what do they call them on Discord? DMs. Okay, so for Discord messages. So if that's just what they've started calling personal messages on all other websites, then I suppose, you know what? More power to them. It is only just relatively recently that I discovered that the gritty is a dance. I'm still trying to pick up on most modern lingo, like apparently the newest one being, and I quote, dig in your butt, twin. I could not pretend to understand what that is in reference to, if anything. Part of me likes to think that kids are just making shit up at this point to mess with older people, and honestly, I have to put some respect on that. Alright, so press... So what even kind of button is that? So... Okay, that's what that is. All cleaned up. Let's see. Leaf blower. Looks like I do not have strong broom. Golden broom. I think I will probably save up for the leaf blower. Wellington boots. For bad weather. 7 leagues. Expensive exotic shoes. You'd like to show off, eh? Greatly increase movement speed and the range of cleaning up jumping and sprinting. Upon jumping and sprinting. Yeah, I think I should be fine. Alleyway. Okay. I mean, this doesn't look like any alleyway I've seen. It looks more like a walkway, but hey, pop off. Typically, alleys are between buildings, as far as my understanding goes, but hey, you know. Doesn't exactly look too dissimilar from where I once was, but hey. Semantics. My word. Up. Up. Kobe, as the kids say. There we are. That's again with the fucking anime speed lines. I can appreciate that with the controls on this, you don't have to press them down, necessarily. Just tap them once, that gets the input in. Hold up. That is an interesting method of making clouds. Fascinating. Don't think I have ever seen clouds rendered quite that way before. I say that not in the sense of, oh, what's that look like? It doesn't look real. No, it's like, I just think it looks interesting. Oh. Hang on, come on. There we are. And now the great work begins yet again. You know, I've never been one of those people who's dipped too much into the satisfying genre of gaming or video watching, because I know there's a whole genre of entertainment dedicated to, like, imagery that is quote-unquote satisfying, and it's just like the clean completion of any given task or process. You know, one of the obvious ones being, you know, Power Wash Simulator and its relative, or its related ilk. And in the case of videos, a lot of it comes down to, like, specifically, I'm trying to think of a specific example, like popping every bubble in a thing of bubble wrap, or like peeling off a sticker off from an electronic in one go with no residue left behind. Shit like that. That's never quite been for me. Not because it's like something I inherently dislike, it's just not something I felt like I've ever needed. What I do have, however, is a sort of sense of satisfaction in thoroughly completing a task. And I think what sets apart something like this from, say, Power Wash Simulator, which I most likely will never play myself, is just minimal input. It's less of an actual game where I have to do magic pixel hunting for every speck of dirt, and more of a, you know, you press a button once and you go for a stroll. The music also helps, I feel. It's like just putting on a lo-fi playlist in the background without needing to. It's like, in the same sense that ASMR is not for me. I do not disparage people who enjoy ASMR, you know, if it helps you relax or just any other result that makes you feel generally more comfortable or at home, more power to you. I've just personally always found it uncomfortable, specifically because I'm one of those people who doesn't really enjoy the idea of people I am unfamiliar with getting that up close and personal with me. Now, that being said, I do still enjoy certain, I don't know, because I guess they fall under the category of ASMR technically, but I always play them with, like, the audio off. Or I usually play them with the audio off. Things like, those videos are just some dude cooking in the woods, or doing restoration on an old tool or metal object through scraping off rust and things like that. But I always play those videos with the audio off, because again, it's just a little too all up in my grill when it comes to the recording of the audio, and I just prefer to watch the process. Which I believe is somewhat counterintuitive to the whole concept of ASMR. push comes to shove, everybody has and will have their own sensibilities when it comes to what is and is not satisfying or stimulating for them. And there is no shame in that. You know, the more I listen to this music, the more I realize it is very, like, late aughts, early 2010s core. I can never remember the name of the song, but I think of like the one that goes like reminds me a lot of that. Like the one you would hear on so many fucking YouTube videos. And I know it was sort of repopularized with that whole barnyard meme of the cow switching back and forth between dancing and standing on four legs every time that one mailman or whatever the fuck turned his back around. Let's see here. This is also reminding me vaguely of some of the music I have heard people play over compilation footage of them playing through the likes of Subnautica. Honestly, I feel like that would be an interesting like DLC map for the likes of Power Wash Simulator. Because, like, Power Wash Simulator has had so many fucking weird-ass collabs. I say this as someone who's never touched Power Wash Simulator himself, but, like, I vaguely know of, like, through seeing, like, random clips that have popped up in my recommended feed of people playing Power Wash Simulator, that apparently there's been, like, SpongeBob levels where you clean up like the main three houses from SpongeBob's neighborhood, or like I'm trying to think if I can remember any others. But yeah, supposedly there's been enough weird collabs with Power Wash Simulator that I would not be surprised if they made a Subnautica one. How that would actually work would be an interesting question, considering the whole game, well, like 90% of the game is underwater. Subnautica is another one of those games that has surprising lasting power. Because, like, you have games like TF2, for example. People have... There have been other, like, class-based capture the flag-esque FPS games, cooperative ones, that have come and gone over the years. Like, the main ones being, like, Overwatch and Overwatch 2 and Marvel Rivals or whatever one was popular before Marvel Rivals, but after Overwatch, and just like, there are so many of them. People are still fucking playing TF2. Like, it's been around since the early aughts, and people are still playing it. I feel like that is a testament to the if it ain't broke, don't fix it policy of TF2. Where there's just like, the gameplay is so refined and it's gotten enough love both from the developers and the community that it can just be played perpetually. I think relatively recently there's like one final update put out, and Valve, like the people at Valve responsible for TF2 put out the source coding for TF2, so they basically gave the green light for anyone to take the base code for TF2 and make whatever the fuck they want with it. Which to me, I feel is a great way to promote the lasting legacy of a game, especially in this era where game death with the closure of central servers is such a rampant fucking issue. I mean, I still heavily encourage any of you who have not looked into the Stop Killing Games movement, spearheaded by Ross Scott of Accursed Farms Productions, to look into it, provide what support you can for the movement, because it's a very, very, very good cause. However, I feel like if more dev teams took after the people behind TF2 and just gave out the fucking coding, the central coding for the game, with the final update for said game, that would be a perfect way to not only ensure that the game survives in some way, shape, or form, but also to promote further innovation on the parts of the people who grew up playing and loving said game. Like, I know this would never fucking happen in a million years, but picture, if you will, if, with the release of Gen 10 of Pokemon, the people at Game Freak gave out the central base code for Scarlet and Violet, and told the Pokemon community, go fucking nuts. I feel like that would be an interesting opportunity for indie devs to take a look into what went wrong with Scarlet and Violet and pick apart the aspects that malfunctioned to see what could be improved upon, focus on what they liked, and gradually fine-tune something that they would like to see. And then Game Freak, with their R&D department, assuming they even fucking have one, could look at these innovations that are put on, I don't know, Steam or something, and go, hey, that's neat what these kids did. Let's try that. With, like, Gen 11. Of course, with that comes the threat of Game Freak taking all the credit for the innovation and experimentation of indie developers, which would fucking suck. But at the very least, they could look at the popularity of experiments put out into the world by the fandom and notice, hey, people seem to like it when they did this. Let's try this, but with an additional twist on it. I don't know, man. Like, there's so much room for fucking growth in the actual gaming industry. And yet no one seems willing to take any of those avenues for growth. I mean, if we're making money, it must work, right? You know, I really feel sorry for like custodial staff who are placed centrally in charge of the likes of cleaning up leaves in outdoor locations like parks, when the job is virtually never done because Autumn is just giving them more to do minute by minute. Let's see, did I miss any on this side? Does not look like it. Quit, I'm doing my damnedest. I won't go the way of the leaves, Amy, I promise. Also, welcome, Avy. I am playing Autumn Cleanup, which is very much just Power Wash Simulator, but with leaves. What you doing over there, Billy? Just doing a line of leaves. I'm not sure if I ever told this story on stream, but, great way to follow up a sentence with doing a line of leaves. But, ages ago, senior year of high school, I remember I was taking a physics class. And it was during break. I was doing some studying in the classroom. And there were these three dudes at a table, well, a couple tables away from me. And they broke out a bag of Tang. Now, for the uninitiated, Tang is essentially the orange drink equivalent of Nesquik. It is very much just powdered orange sugar that you mix up with water to create a hyper sugary drink. Well, sugary / tangy, hence the name Tang. And I wasn't sure what they were doing at first. Because they didn't seem to have any water bottles with them. And then I noticed they opened the package of Tang and started pouring it on the table in a line. And that's when I realized, oh, you dumb motherfuckers. Because keep in mind, teenagers will treat anything like a fucking drug if left to their own devices. And just before they were able to follow through with the do, as it were, the physics teacher came walking in and saw what they were doing. And at this point, I'm thinking, okay, fine. He'll put a stop to this. He can be a little, like, eccentric at times. He's, like, the guy who throws away syllabi and does something completely different for class. But, like, he's straight-laced enough to know that this can't fly. Without so much as a fucking blink, he walks up to these three guys and goes, "Yeah, man, go, go, go!" A la Michelangelo. And just all of them were fucking stun-locked before eventually they just put the Tang away, cleaned it up, and none of them snorted it. And years later, I realized that was the most brilliant application of reverse psychology that I have ever seen. Because, number one, no teenager wants to do what an adult who couldn't possibly understand the troubles and coolisms of them hip kids. No one wants to do what that guy has to say. Second of all, this man was fucking insane to begin with. Like, I mentioned, like, he was constantly just, like, printing out syllabi for us so that we would know what the next class was about, and they would say, yeah, no, fuck that mess, we're going to be learning about this instead. And he would constantly, like, get up on his desk and get, like, it was like taking a physics class with goddamn Jim Carrey or Robin Williams. Like, you never quite knew what the fuck to expect from this guy. So when this guy starts saying, yeah, man, go, 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 at the notion of you snorting orange drink. That's gonna give you some fucking pause. You go, holy shit, if this guy's behind it, maybe we shouldn't do it. Gotta get the fuck out of here. I have had some interesting teachers over the years. My high school chemistry teacher, rather, used to be a football coach. Until he apparently got so fucking pissed off with someone that he... Actually, no, that happened later. But, yeah, he used to be a football coach. And because he was a football coach, he was, well, his teaching methods often dipped into the realm of... reinforcement by means of toxic masculinity, shall we say. Like, if you asked a question that he deemed stupid, he would follow your question up with the likes of, how many legs does a three-legged dog have? And, so, yeah, it was... He made a point also to bring up that one time a student had gotten so ornery with him and so, like, petulant with him that he ended up punching him in the fucking face. And that was something he saw necessary to share with the class. I guess as a means of saying, don't fuck with me. Yet my dumbass apparently had enough gumption to call him the fuck out when he incorrectly scored my exams. Thankfully, this motherfucker, as fucked as he was, had a pretty good policy where if you could prove he fucked up with his calculations, he would not only give you points for the faulty grading, he would give you extra credit. And nerd that I was, who graduated with a 4.0 in honors, was always on his good side. It was an interesting time. The motherfucker had us make white lightning in that class. White lightning, for the uninitiated, being pure fucking alcohol. Like 100%, 100 proof. I believe what he did was that he just boiled wine or something, and then we each got to taste a drop of what came out. It did not help the fact that I was not a fan of the taste of alcohol. Like, the most I'd ever drunk by that point was, like, a Zima. And that was fucking bitter enough for me, because I'm what they call a super taster. I'm one of those people who has, like, the soap cilantro gene. So I am especially sensitive to bitter tastes. And alcohol is very much just pure distilled bitterness for me. And so the taste of white lightning did nothing for my opinion on alcohol in general. But it was still a learning experience. Just going to that high school in general was a learning experience. And what I learned was that I needed to get the fuck out of that town as soon as humanly possible. Because, like, to give you a little glimpse into what my hometown's expectations for its local youth were. Our high school was surrounded by 3 institutions. A cemetery, a sheriff's office, and a Planned Parenthood center. Basically, they were saying, you're gonna wind up pregnant, behind bars, or 6 feet underground. So, good luck with that. So as you can imagine, I was not exactly all that busted up leaving that shithole and never turning back. It is one of those rural California towns where the only reason anyone lives there is that they can't afford to move. Alright. I mean, I've made some good fucking progress. Let's see, have I missed... Oh, I have in fact missed something. There we are. Well, to be in my defense, that was under the fucking dirt. Yep, same here. Anything over here? Yep. It was always interesting because, as I mentioned before, I grew up in this little, like, mountain cul-de-sac, and for, like, preschool, kindergarten, elementary, I had to go to one town while living out in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. And then going to high school, I had to travel to another town in the complete opposite direction from where I was living in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. So I never really had that sense of, like, you know, local pride when it came to, like, schools and shit. Because where I lived was almost completely unrelated to where I was going to school. And even then, I've never really fully understood the concept of, like, hometown pride or things like that, because a town is just where the fuck you live. You can live just about fucking anywhere, provided you have the funds. You are not where you come from. You are not defined by where you grew up. I grew up in a shit heap, and I do not associate any of who I am as a person with that place. In fact, I would argue that I am a completely different person now than who I was when I lived in that shithole town. And even then, when I was still in that town, I didn't much care for it. Out of morbid curiosity the other day, I just went to, like, Google Maps / Google Earth / whatever the fuck they're calling it these days, and just went to, like, the ground view level and scrolled through my hometown. Like, it is nothing but fucking strip malls and churches. That's about fucking it. Strip malls, churches, fast food, and just shitty living conditions. Like, at my high school, you couldn't even get away with wearing a solid red or a solid blue t-shirt, because the teaching staff would assume that meant you were associated with a gang. They ultimately, who you are as a person will be affected by your rearing to an extent. Like, you will have experiences living where you live or growing up where you grew up But that does not define you entirely as a person. It is not your base personality. You are not who you are simply because you grew up in, like, dog shit Michigan or Timmy's Tonsils, Kentucky, or wherever the fuck. Let's see. Now, what was the button to complete things? That's what it was. I'd say I've earned a leaf blower. Alright. Alright. Ooh, fountain. Yeah. Okay, the crickets add a nice vibe in and of themselves. Yeah, I'm noticing that a lot of these maps are very samey. But honestly, again, it's an indie game. You work with what you got, and if you need to reuse some assets, then, you know, you do what you gotta do. I'll say I appreciate that there is no limit on the leaf blower. Suppose that's your reward for playing as long with the rooms as you have. Why you would use anything other than the leaf blower is beyond me, but I suppose if you like the slow, methodical approach, then again, more power to you. You know, I don't think I would have the patience to do all of this necessarily again with anything outside the leaf blower. I mean, something, not the destination, it's the journey, but again, I'm very task-oriented. I just want to get something done in one sitting. I am that impatient motherfucker who refuses to do anything but take all of my groceries up in one trip. Whether that is struggling and sweating bullets with like 10 bags under my arms, or me investing in getting a cart, it's going to get done in one go, or it's not going to get done at all. Let's see. I mean, I will say, as much as I am enjoying this game, the thought of having to constantly rake up leaves or blow leaves or shovel snow off a driveway or pick weeds or things like that, it is like permanently put me off of the idea of ever wanting a house, as opposed to, say, like an apartment or something like that. Because again, I grew up in the middle of bumfuck nowhere in this mountain cul-de-sac where you would constantly need to keep an eye on things in your yard, like making sure that you don't trip over like mole holes, or like don't let weeds get out of hand. And I don't like the idea of having to constantly deal with that. I would much rather just pay rent and live in a place inside where I'm immune to the influence of the elements. Plus, I really don't want to have to deal with any sort of fucking homeowners association. I've heard nothing but horror stories about those types of fucking stuck-up pricks. So, question for chat. What is your favorite autumn activity or tradition? Like something you always look forward to doing, either by your lonesome or with your family or friends, once autumn comes around. For me, growing up, one of the big things, apart from the obvious, like, birthday and Halloween, was going to the local pumpkin patch. Because first of all, I just liked carving pumpkins in general. Because I got to be creative with this organic canvas that I was given. But also, just going to the pumpkin patch, the air was crisp, I could see my breath, and in later years, as I grew up, they would add shit like a corn maze to go through. It was like the autumn equivalent of, like, going out to get a Christmas tree for me. I mean, obviously, yes, it's sort of the same thing, but, like, again, different vibes entirely. Because normally you only just get the one Christmas tree. When you go to the pumpkin patch, you're getting a whole fucking slew of motherfuckers to take home and butcher. And it was always the same. You would, like, get this rickety ass wagon that you got from the front, and you would have to navigate through these thorny vines on which the pumpkins were still attached, and you were given, like, shears. And you would pick out your own pumpkin, and you would, like, cut it off the vine. And you'd always have to check. You'd always have to check the bottom to see how ripe it was, quote unquote. And for me, like, I always liked getting, like, the bigger pumpkins because there's more to scoop out and more to carve. But also, like, in later years when I was still living in that area, I'd also like to get more than just pumpkins, because they had a bunch of different fucking gourds there that were growing. And I liked the idea of making jack-o'-lanterns out of things that weren't just pumpkins. I mean, that way you have, like, more shit to show off, like, around your house. I think the other thing I always appreciated about autumn specifically, my mom went buck fucking wild when it came to decorating the house for 2 seasons. Or 2 holidays, rather. Halloween and Christmas. Like, especially when I was younger, because there were a lot more fucking kids living in my neighborhood. And so she would go all the fuck out for Halloween and Christmas. Just decorating the ever-loving shit out of everything. Like, a bunch of strung lights along the gate. Like, all those fucking fake cobwebs. A big old glowing jack-o'-lantern sign. Like, a bunch of, like, fake skeletons and tombstones. And, like, looping Halloween music playing on speakers from, like, CDs. did you not go in there? Come on. There we go. Because like, I would argue like the most CDs, like the majority of CDs in my house were of Christmas and Halloween music. And some of it was just like looping tracks of like spooky ambiance for Halloween specifically. So I think honestly my mom was a big influence as well as on why I enjoyed Halloween so much, because it was just made that fucking special. Did you ever skip the little trick-or-treat pail and just use a pillowcase? God. I never used a pillowcase, though I probably should have. I should. My voice is getting a little phlegmy. Put the leaves down and drink some water. You'll never take me alive! But, I mean, it would be remiss of me not to mention Thanksgiving, because obviously that's the other big autumn holiday. And, like, the whole thing with Thanksgiving, for most people, I know, is that, like, you get, like, all the family coming together. Like, you get, like, your extended family, your aunts, uncles, cousins, grandma, all that shit. That was never Thanksgiving for me. Thanksgiving was only ever, like, my immediate family, like mom, dad, and sibling, and us just eating by ourselves, or we would get together with family friends. Like, people who were friends with my parents. And we would have a big old dinner with each other. And I suppose it sort of leans into the whole found family aspect, which has led to, I guess, what people nowadays are calling Friendsgiving. Which I still say it's Thanksgiving, because family can take on many forms. You don't have to necessarily give it an entirely new name. Family is what you make of it. I do not prescribe to the cult of blood relations. Just because you share genetic material with someone does not make them your family. Put food in me and I will follow you home like a stray animal. Yeah, I cannot blame you for that, Koshak. Let's see. Did I miss any bags of leaves? Oh, also, in case I haven't made it clear, fuck Christopher Columbus. And fuck the Pilgrims. And fuck just any sort of sensationalized celebration of white people who came over and ruined the lives of millions upon millions of indigenous people. Alright, so got the 7 Leagues boots. Leaf blower. Don't even know why I would need a fucking golden broom. I got all the shit I need. Come on, tricky. There we go. It is an interesting sort of... an interesting thing to think about. Now that I've brought up the, like, you know, fuck the actual basis on which Thanksgiving was first concocted. Or the excuse for it, rather. My family was never one of those families that celebrated anything for, like, the original reason for it. Like... yeah, I did get some of the drink. It's just talking a lot tends to do this to my throat. But, you know, my sibling and I were not raised religious, for example. And so, like, we didn't celebrate, like, Christmas for any religious reasons. It was just like, oh, Christmas, it's the gift holiday. Let's decorate shit and get gifts. Like, we didn't celebrate Halloween because we believed in spirits or, you know, any of the old pagan rites. It was just, oh, it's the dress up and get candy holiday. We didn't really celebrate Thanksgiving because we liked the idea of, like, unity between colonizers and indigenous people. It was literally just the eat a bunch of shit on the same holiday and make autumnal desserts holiday. And that was just like us growing up. It was like not a childhood of beliefs so much as just traditions for the sake of having shit to do. And outside the context of living with my family, like once I moved out on my own, I steadily found more and more that I was just not really incentivized to do any of that shit. Like, I can't remember the last time I got a Christmas tree. I can't remember the last time I got a pumpkin to carve. I can't remember the last time I watched a fucking football game or Macy's Day Parade. It was just the thing that was happening in proximity to me during my childhood, and I was present, so I participated. And the thing is, like, tradition has varying levels of importance to varying people. Like, for me personally, I don't see the point of tradition, because oftentimes the most horrendous shit can be executed or condoned for the sake of tradition. Like, we can't do something different. It's always been done this way. Or, we can't have this group of people associate with us. They've always been separate from us. Or, you can't make this food this way. It's always been made this way. And anything made otherwise doesn't count as that food. And I fucking hate that. I hate that fucking mindset almost more than anything else, because it stifles progress and experimentation and creativity. But I also say this as a white dude. Like someone whose beliefs and traditions have not been forcibly restricted or whose culture has been nearly wiped from the face of the earth. So I can say that I don't care about tradition when it comes to me and my life, but that doesn't really hold much weight when I try and apply that universally. Because a bunch of white people have decided for generations upon generations that their ideals or their traditions or their views on tradition in general matter more than other people. Which is not right either. I guess it's also partially why I brought up, like, autumnal traditions earlier. Because, like, I guess at this point it's morbid curiosity, considering I don't really have any traditions anymore. Because now that I am just living on my own with a roommate, and even between us, we don't really have too terribly many traditions, quote-unquote, and even then, like, if we try something for a few years, that is no guarantee that we will do it ever again. Like, the closest thing we have to tradition between my roommate and I is when her birthday comes around, we get an ice cream cake, and we put a meme on it. And we just did that shit because we thought it'd be hilarious. It is not something we will do for the rest of our lives. I guarantee you that. Like, as another example, one of the reasons I live where I live is because it's constantly fucking changing. I live in a place where there is really not much emphasis on tradition. There is always something new going on. There is always something new being built. There is always something new being talked about. Traditionalism is a fucking alien concept where I currently live, and I prefer it that way. But even then, I don't necessarily have too terribly much pride, quote-unquote, in where I live, because where I live is just a place. It does not define me. And I know for a fact that I will not always live here. When the time comes where I'm just sick of the place I'm currently living, or just other circumstances come along that make it difficult to live where I'm living, I will happily move somewhere else. I have no loyalties to places or customs. My only loyalties are to myself and the people I care about. That's it. And because of that, I will never understand things like town pride or school pride or, you know, things like that. The whole team spirit thing was always fucking an alien concept to me. Like, why did I cheer for the 49ers when I was growing up? Because that was the team my parents liked. I couldn't give two shits about the 49ers now. Like, I legitimately cannot remember the last time I watched a game of football. And even as a kid, it was like, yeah, the game was interesting enough when it was explained to me, but also, I just liked the snacks that my mom would put out during the game. Oh, hey, it's that thing on TV where mom puts out the spinach and artichoke dip. Nice. I'm a demon and I have no loyalty. Yeah, no, like, I was admittedly thinking a little bit about that while I was saying it. Only halfway I was realizing Ha ha! This shit ain't nothing to me, man. Dracula Flow is just one of those mimetic phenomenon that you have to wonder if it would ever come to pass, like 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Like, what specific set of cultural circumstances had to be perfectly aligned for Joji to say, you know what? I'm gonna get a shitty Dracula costume, put it on this old dude, paint on a hairline, and have him recite rap lyrics and burns that I wrote. The internet is a magical and often horrifying place. It's like the Feywilds. It's also interesting, now that I think about it, how games like this, where the actual task set before you is so fucking monotonous, or at the very least, something you can execute all but unconsciously, where you end up talking about anything but the fucking game. I almost wonder if that's the fucking reason why games like this are categorized under the satisfying criteria, where it's less the game itself and more just knowing you can think or talk about fucking literally anything while you're playing it. I may have also told this story before, but I was reminded of it because of the church bells there. So, as I mentioned before, my sibling and I were not raised religious. We weren't really raised to believe one thing or another, because like both my parents were raised Catholic, but my father ended up atheist and my mother agnostic, so they just decided, you know what, our kids will make up their own fucking minds. And so there are very few times where I would ever set foot in a church. I think literally the only time I did growing up was when I was doing piano recitals. But my parents told me this story about supposedly the first time I ever did set foot in a church. And it was apparently for a wedding rehearsal for like a family member. And again, I was not raised religious. And so this was my first time seeing a crucifix. And it was one of those like uncomfortably realistic crucifixes where like the person who carved the wooden image went into explicit, gory detail about, like, the blood coming out of the hands that, you know, J-Dog was nailed to, as it were. And Babby Me took one look at this crucifix walking into this church and supposedly went, "Oh my God, what is that?" And I have no memory of this happening myself, but I'll be damned if that does not sound like something I would fucking do. No pun intended, by the way. I also need to stress this is not meant to be any sort of commentary on, like, what a person should or should not believe as far as, like, faith or religion is. Like, this is just, like, me sharing with you what my childhood experiences were. And I just thought that was fucking hilarious. Circumstantially. I mean, listen, at this point, I'm like 90% convinced that my dad puns were fucking hereditary. Because my capacity for dad puns is just something genetic, deeply rooted in my heritage. Like, I know next to nothing about, like, my uncle on my father's side, for example, except that he's a theater kid. And so that sort of punmanship, I feel, more than likely runs in the family. And just knowing what I know about my family on my mom's side, I have the distinct impression a fair bit of it comes from there, too. So the gay could be from both sides of the family. Oh, abso-fucking-lutely. As well as the European. But yeah, all of this to say, if anyone ever tells you what you should or should not believe or should not practice as a custom or tradition, kindly ask that they sound themselves with a rusty railroad spike. Who you are as a person and what you do and do not celebrate or believe is up to you and you alone. And no fucking tradition or outside influence should tell you otherwise. Because you are you and no one else. You are not where you come from, and you are not what you grew up with. Unless that is something you want to be the case. Alright. Alright. Enter photo mode. There we go. There we are. Let's see. No bags over there. None over here. Come on. Upsy daisies. Yep. There we go. Skadoosh. just see here. Any more? Does not look like it. Then alright. So one more bag. But where abstitive the fuck is it? Ah, there you are. Oh, come on. Oh. There we go. Oh yeah, that's right, sinner that I am. I can't set foot on holy ground. Oh, that suits me just fine. The end. You see, I thought they were just the 4 levels, but I wasn't entirely certain. Okay. Well, thank you for making. Yeah, give me a cinematic. I mean, that was just lovely. Thank you so much for cleaning my sheet. And yeah, that's right on the 2-hour mark, too. So, summer has in fact come and gone. Maybe it's still lingering in some places, but I personally am more than ready to wish it farewell. So long, auf Wiedersehen, goodbye. I am looking forward to bundling up, baking, enjoying the sound of rain, the smell of rain, as well as the smell of fireplace smoke, and not spending nearly as much on air conditioning. I hope you're all looking forward to that too. I am hoping that autumn gives us much more palatable vibes than what we've been getting for quite some fucking time. But I suppose only time will tell. So, have a good weekend to all of you, and once again, keep an eye out on the Gale Rice channel, because something is coming. And I'm looking forward to seeing all of you froth at the proverbial bits for it. But until then, this has been the Logician, reminding you to fucking think.